Hello, viewers, and welcome to the latest episode of The Huddle. Tim Poole here, editor of Gambling Insider, and it's a first for us. We've got someone from the Culinary Workers Union Local 226, none other than the Secretary-Treasurer, Ted Pappageorge. Ted, thanks for joining us.
Thanks. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, looking forward to speaking to you on a number of issues. And like I say, it's a first for us because we're used to speaking to two casinos, to people across the industry. But obviously, this is a little bit different. Plenty in the news at the moment. You're a man with a lot of history in Vegas, a lot of history with the unions. To start off with, I wanted to ask you with the most recent news for you guys that you came to a deal with the Strat. If you could tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we've had negotiations ongoing since April of last year. Our contracts expired June 1st. The pandemic was quite a terrible ordeal for us. Our business was wiped out, but it's come roaring back, and the companies are setting record profits, doing well. The latest victory for our members is a terrific contract with record wage increases and dealing with money for our benefits, and also workload reduction, technology, protections, dealing with technology, and just the latest issues. We've had a big tussle with these companies for over the last 5 years about tech and robotics, but the addition of AI really means that we've got to have some strong language to make sure that we're sitting in the front seat with these companies as they look to eliminate jobs or change jobs or whatever they're going to do, and safety on the job and our ability to grow. So, look, the Stratosphere is the latest. We settled with the Westgate on Saturday, and the latest group, the Waldorf, the Four Seasons, and the Mirage, the Tropicana. And then earlier in the fall, we had a big showdown with the largest companies, MGM Resorts, Caesars Entertainment, and the Wynn Resorts. And we had a deadline of November 10th and strike deadline. And we literally were up about 2 hours shy of that deadline with the last company. So we're happy about it, but we've got about 18 of these casino resorts left. And we've got a strike deadline coming up in about a week, February 2nd. So it's time to get these done.
Mm-hmm. A few of the specific casinos and episodes that you mentioned there, I'll ask you a little bit about further down the line. I want to talk to you about this pending strike that, as you say, that may or may not happen. But I do want to emphasize as well, just for the viewers, as we've already talked about before we started, that I'm impartial. I'm objective. So I'm just here to ask questions, and I'm not on the casino side or on the union side. But obviously, this is your platform to put your views across. So you mentioned the second, it's the 2nd of February deadline, and as you say, you've got a few agreements in place already. If a strike does go ahead, what exactly does it impact? How many members do you think it will affect, and what could happen potentially?
Well, we've got about 6,000 members remaining in these remaining 18 or so contracts that we've got left. Friday, 5 a.m., February 2nd is the deadline. And look, if negotiations break down with any of these companies, strikes could happen sooner. But at the end of the day, whoever's left that has not figured out how to get to the finish line and get a deal signed, our folks are organized and ready to strike. And let me just say this, look, any responsible labor leader, the goal is to avert a strike, is nobody wants a strike. But we've been at this for quite a while with these companies, and companies are doing extremely well. And when companies have record years, workers deserve record contracts. That's our position on that. And folks, don't want to strike, but they're ready to strike. So we're hoping to get to an agreement with these companies.
And overall, in terms of, obviously it's clear what you're fighting for, but in terms of specifics, what are you looking for from casinos, and does it vary casino by casino? Does it vary from a Las Vegas Strip casino to a downtown resort, that kind of thing?
Not really. Look, the issues of kind of dealing with the economy and making sure that people can survive. We've got to be able to pay their rents. You know, we've got this huge problem of Wall Street landlords buying up, you know, apartment buildings and homes and Airbnbs and holding stock, cornering the market, jacking up rents. Rents are up in some areas 40% in the last few years. It's extremely difficult for people to be able to save and be able to own a home. And look, we think there's a real plan out there for these institutional landlords to create a new generation of renters. And folks have to be able to afford their rent, but also have a dream to one day be able to own a home. So the idea that, you know, whether it's cost of groceries, gas, or rent, folks need a big raise, period. And so that's kind of, like you said, pretty obvious to a lot of folks, but you know, also, you know, we have to deal with our healthcare cost through our union contract. We have our own health centers, and it's a big issue for our folks. These are strike issues to make sure that they can take their kids and their families to the doctor and have a pension that, you know, in addition to Social Security is extremely important, but not enough. But then the things that aren't as obvious are job security issues. And, you know, you can get a great big raise, but if the company can be bought and sold or subcontract out your job or replace you with technology, what does it matter how big the raise you got if you're in the unemployment line? So, you know, we are not about to sit around and let companies throw people out like an old shoe. And so our technology language does a couple things. One, it guarantees companies can introduce technology. We're not opposing the technology, but they've got to give us a 6-month notice. And that means they've got to have us in the room. So when they're looking at prototypes and looking at vendors, you know, the union workers have some input. Because what usually happens is tech comes in 2 weeks ahead of time, folks get laid off, jobs change, and a lot of times it's wrong. We believe there's going to be plenty of jobs. We just don't know what they're going to look like, and these companies don't know either. So one, there's notification that has to happen 6 months in our language. Then there's got to be training provided for to be able to compete for the jobs and make sure that you can do the jobs, and there are jobs. But then the third piece is a safety net. And we negotiated $2,000 per year with the company as a severance package, plus 6 months healthcare and pension payments, which is a huge increase. And we had a big fight with these companies about that. But if you've been with somebody 20 years, that's a $40,000 check. If they bring in a smart tender, a robotic bartender, for example, like MGM did, you know, fired 300 bartenders and moved a lot of that work actually over to the servers and other folks. And so it was a big issue, our folks. So that tech issue is a big issue. But then this idea of just job security, and when these hotels get bought and sold, we call that ownership and successorship, a big issue in negotiations. And then our right to grow. These companies grow, but our membership went down since the pandemic because, you know, between refusal to clean rooms daily, which some companies have decided. I mean, I'm sure you travel and you'll go somewhere and they'll tell you, well, we're not cleaning your rooms, but you're still going to pay that 30% higher rate that they're charging. So, you know, Vegas can't be limited service. It's got to be full service. We have to be the entertainment capital of the world. And it's a job issues also. And then just safety on the job. We push very hard for safety buttons so that folks, if they're in a dangerous situation, you work alone when you work up in these hotel towers. But if you're out in the drive or out in the pool areas and there's a situation, folks need to be safe on the job. So we had a kind of 5 major points that I just covered. And, you know, these are strike issues. And luckily with the big companies, we're able to get there. But I think we're going to have some strikes here coming up February 2nd, unfortunately.
You mentioned, obviously, as a labor leader, a strike is something you want to avoid. And then you've emphasized a couple of times that there was a real battle with some of these companies. Can you tell us a little bit more about the talks you had with, as you just said, with the big companies, so I guess the big 3, but others as well, and how close did it? Because you mentioned a strike, it was pretty close, you know, and we saw scenes of people sort of celebrating in the room when the deals were announced, and that was very close to the deadline.
Well, look, we sat down with those three companies in April of 2023 to open negotiations. And look, they had an opportunity at any time to come to the table in a real way to get a deal done, and it just didn't happen. Now, there were complicated issues like the ones I talked about it, and we wanted to make sure we had plenty of time to work through those. But, you know, at the end of the day, on a Tuesday morning, we started with Caesars Entertainment around 10 in the morning. We finished up about 5:30 the next morning. And they were the first ones to come to the table, and we have to recognize that Caesars Entertainment, made that move. And you'd think that would, set the table, but we jumped into negotiations a few hours later with MGM Resorts, went till 5:30 in the morning, same thing. And it just was very difficult negotiations, but we all made a decision to stay there and push through. And then the remaining, that was Thursday morning. And we started around 2 in the afternoon up with Caesars or with Wynn Resorts with a deadline of the next morning at 5 in the morning, and it went till about 3 o'clock in the morning, and to try to get the same deal done. And look, we don't have a bargaining association here, so we have to be the cop. If we have a company that comes up and says, okay, I'll do the right thing, I'll get this done, we'll get something that people are willing to accept and will ratify and to stop a strike, then we've got to commit to them that we'll do whatever it takes with the next group of employers. And so for us, that's led to some very difficult, nasty strikes in our history. And, I worked in the industry. I was in a 9-month strike at the Horseshoe back in the day. And then we had a 7-year strike over that very issue because we had a very rich, very wealthy owner on the Strip in the 90s that didn't want to agree to the contract that everybody else agreed to, just wouldn't agree to the standard. So our folks are prepared if they have to, but hopefully we won't.
I wanted to ask you a hypothetical, and obviously you've mentioned some historic strikes there. If a strike did take place, let's say during the Las Vegas Grand Prix, what kind of impact might that have had on the city?
Well, look, I think we get asked this question a lot, and I tell folks that, look, Las Vegas is the entertainment capital of the world and becoming the sporting capital of the world. And so whether it's the Grand Prix or whether it's the big Thanksgiving weekend or New Year's or the National Finals Rodeo or CES that just came through was an incredible event, or the Super Bowl that's coming up, or March Madness. And every weekend here's a big weekend. But what the reality is that these companies sometimes have forgotten that they can't function and do these incredible events and make these incredible profits without the workers, period. So we've been fortunate and we've been successful that we've done two things. Over the last 20 years, we've worked very hard. We set deadlines, but we've been able to be reasonable in bargaining and get great contracts, and companies have done the right thing, and we've averted strikes. And so, we've had turnovers in management, and there may be some of them that decide that, maybe they can knock the union out. The other thing we've done, though, is keep a level playing field, and that's critical. Because if you're going to tell a company that they're going to step up to the plate and give the very best wages, healthcare, pension, and job security, you got to be able to guarantee that a company, you're going to go after their neighbor, their competitor, and they've got to pay the same freight. There's got to be a level playing field. And, we're happy to say we had a great year last year. The Venetian, 26 years, the most anti-union employer probably in the United States, with Sheldon Adelson. That company was sold. Apollo, big private equity company, took it over. We had a battle with them for about 2 years to win a neutrality agreement so that workers have the right, without any intimidation or firing or bribes or anything, to choose a union or not. 80% of the workers chose the union. For the first time ever, we're going to have 100% unionized casinos on the Strip. And so we won the Venetian last year. We won the Sphere, same thing. Couple of years, neutrality agreement. We won that last year, and then the Fountain Blue. You know, they're all going to be union properties, and we're going to start negotiating those contracts this year once we get done with this last round of the previous contracts. So those two things about keeping a level playing field and making sure we're organizing the competition is a kind of critical to our success as a union.
Mm-hmm. I want to move on to the potential strikes that are upcoming, because you dropped an ominous note earlier that you think there will be some strikes. But before I ask you about that, I wanted to mention recently, obviously there were strikes in Detroit, casinos there, and from analyzing the industry, we could see the gaming revenue numbers significantly dipped during that month. So there were clear results even with the gaming, let alone the hospitality numbers, food and beverage, that kind of thing. I'm just wondering, from Vegas, was there anything that you kind of gleaned from that situation that, I'm not sure I want to say draw inspiration from, but what were your kind of observations at the time?
Well, I can tell you those workers in Detroit were incredibly inspiring to us. That's our sister local. We belong to Unite Here. That's our international union, and Local 24 in Detroit. We sent staff to help their picket lines. We sent money. We sent support. They sent their workers to come to our negotiations because it's MGM Resorts. It's the same company that's one of the three employers there. Look, those workers were heroes, in my opinion. It was 45 days in terrible weather, but again, these companies are setting records, record profits, record visitation, record margins. And it's funny, they said, 2023 wasn't that good. I said, well, but 21 and 22 were stupendous. So you still did a pretty great year in 23, even if it wasn't quite as great. But, that situation in Detroit is a real strong warning, because if you're not organized and willing to strike, a lot of companies will just run over you. And like, we're not looking for anything other than just what we think is a fair shake and something that, gives us stability over the next 5 years for a 5-year contract. And, we were highly supportive of our brothers and sisters in Detroit, and they were very supportive of us and very helpful for us too.
Mm-hmm. So final topic, really. It's the big one. The 2nd of February deadline. We started off, I think recently it was 8,000 members. As you say, there's about 6,000 remaining. Where do we go from here? And as you say, it sounds like you're maybe confidence is the wrong word, but you think strikes will happen.
Well, we've got several properties remaining on the Strip, and all of our properties remaining downtown. And look, we've got bargaining happening today. Multiple companies every single day bargaining. They're what we call main table bargaining, and also subcommittee bargaining for items that may not affect everybody, but they're very important. And so, for example, one of the big issues out there is housekeeping and daily room cleaning. I mentioned that earlier. We had a big fight in the legislature, didn't get anywhere with, unfortunately, our friendly Democrats, and we knew it would be a strike issue. But this idea just that there should be regular room cleaning available to guests is, it's a huge issue for our members. And mostly women of color, moms and single moms that are these housekeepers. It's the most difficult job, physical work. And companies need to understand that, one, they've got to pay them more. Two, they've got to reduce the workload. And three, there's got to be a career path for folks so they're not stuck in those jobs. They've been loyal with these companies for 10, 20, 30 years. They need to have opportunities. So, that issue is unresolved with these companies. The issue of the economics are unresolved. And this technology issue, the idea that, we're going to be in the room and have a say-so that we can be prepared for the technology, because there's no one stopping technology.
Mm-hmm.
And even these companies, as I may have said before, they don't know what this technology is going to lead to over the next few years. So we're really happy with the agreements we've had on tech before, but when you combine robotics with AI, it has the ability to really do some damage if we don't have proper notification and ability to prepare and be ready for it. So
Hmm.
I think we're going to have some strikes, and I hope I'm wrong.
Well, Ted, thank you very much for your time. Thanks for being open and honest with us, and best of luck with all negotiations. As you say, let's hope there aren't strikes, but certainly watch this space, because there's going to be, either way, there's going to be plenty of news, I think, in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I think so. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.